August the 20th. So if you're here for the first time, you are in for, I'm sure, what will be a surprising discussion, simply because the level of our discussion in these calls, I think, is unique in American politics, with, of course, the exception of the Saturday event, which goes on now every week in Manhattan. So tonight we have quite a bit to discuss. Obviously, the centerpiece is the immediate and ongoing threat of thermonuclear war. I would recommend in that regard a statement that will be out probably on the website later today, which is entitled, "An Insane President Will Launch Nuclear War in August. What Democrats Must Do to Prevent It." Then I think that beyond that, I think there's a leaflet up on the website I would recommend to people, which is it's entitled "The Guns of Late August," and this is something which I would encourage everyone to get out at local events. And obviously, we want to take this message, including the statement, tomorrow, and get that out to campaign events and take full advantage of the fact that we are in the presidential campaign season, where there are a lot of opportunities here in the middle of the congressional recess to get our material out and to intervene and shape a response in this country to the urgent, pressing necessity of getting Barack Obama removed under the 25th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. So these are, I'm sure, things we'll be discussing here this evening with Mr. LaRouche. Now, I want to point out a couple of things for people who are on the phone here early. In my email that I sent out for our discussion here this evening, I included in there a link to YouTube. This was of a very, very special event, which was related to the theme of our discussion this evening of mass destruction through thermonuclear war or human creativity. Well, we had an event last Saturday evening in Manhattan, sponsored by the Schiller Institute, which was celebrating creativity, which was an hour and a half or so long music evening, a music abend, featuring amateurs, semi-professionals, and professional singers, but with a really incredible focus and presentation in the middle of it by Maestro John Segerson. And I would encourage everybody to listen to that, because the result of that event last week in Manhattan led Mr. LaRouche to indicate that we had now achieved the kind of unity of purpose and mission in our movement, unifying it around this project in Manhattan, embodied by that event that occurred last Saturday. So I would encourage everybody to listen to that event, which you can get that in the email that I send out every week. And if you aren't on that list, you can email me or call our 800 number at the National Center. I'll make sure that you get that link. Otherwise, I would also encourage people to look at the latest EIR. In there is a blockbuster article by a number of people, but particularly I point to by Barbara Boyd, entitled, "Is the FBI Running You? Are You Sure?" And this includes developed material about the FBI control, i.e. background of none other than Donald Trump and his mentor, Roy Cohn. So I'll say no more and encourage people to subscribe to that and get the latest issue. So you're here for the discussion. If you're on the call here tonight, the 14th Fireside Chat discussion with Lyndon LaRouche. This is John Asher here in Leesburg, Virginia, welcoming everybody getting back on this call this evening. And for all those people who are new and people listening on the internet, which has been a feature that we've had for the last 5 or 6 weeks, something like that. And you can ask questions on the internet. I'll explain this when we get into the discussion here shortly. And we'll be on the phone here in about a minute with Mr. LaRouche, and we will then open up questions for those of you who are on the call to say what you have to say and pose something to Mr. LaRouche, and we'll see what his response is. So we're going to get underway right now.
This conference is being recorded.
So, good evening, everyone. This is John Asher in Leesburg, Virginia, welcoming you to the 14th Fireside Chat with Lyndon LaRouche. And I have no introduction for Lynn. We've all had participated in these discussions. I'm hoping that, Lynn, you are on the phone and can hear me.
I can hear you, and I'm on the phone.
Great. All right, so Lynn, this evening, is there any preliminary remarks that you would like to make to the people who have assembled on this call here this evening?
Well, just simply, broadly, that we've had successes in terms of Manhattan, and the Manhattan developments, which really are complementing exactly what we're doing here on this occasion, is part of an integral process. Obviously, this thing is not going to remain in the same form. It's going to evolve into a more systematic form, a higher form of discussion, as actually making decisions on the future of the nation. So I think what we're doing now is a preliminary process of getting a larger organization more coherently brought together. But that means that people have to become more familiar with each other. And this is a process we have to go through in order to develop a more coherent approach to the whole national challenge and international challenge which we face right now.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to turn on the cue.
Q&A session started.
And for those of you who are participating, you can hit *6 if you're on the telephone, and that will put you in line to say something, ask a question to Mr. LaRouche. I ask you to please give us your first name and where you're calling from, because I think it's very important that people get a sense of the kind of national participation we've had on this call. And if you are listening in on the internet, you can, in the comments section of YouTube, we have someone from LaRouche PAC that's monitoring that and in touch with me. So you can type in a question, and I will intersperse those questions as we're going along here this evening. I actually already have a couple questions from YouTube. So we can get questions from those of you who are participating via the World Wide Web. So here we're going to go for the first question up.
Hey, Lynn and John, this is Dan from Wisconsin. How are you guys doing?
Yes.
The Greek situation, and the Prime Minister just resigned. I'm wondering what's going on other than the blood of the system, and they went along with the looting of the fascists in Europe. I'm wondering what's your take on what's going on there with relation to everything else that's going on.
It has the potentiality of being brought into something more coherent, but right now you have a pretty much incoherent arrangement because everything is involved in everything else, and there is no finality here. The whole Greek movement has been, of course, shattered. It's in more and more fragmented. It's understandable. Look, you have a population which is being fried, essentially. They have no real independence. The degree of independence they had has been slaughtered, and they cannot go on like this. Because the Greek system cannot stand this in its present form. There has to be a resolution. Right now, there is no serious attempt at a resolution of the Greek problems. And many of the issues that are the so-called Greek problems are fraudulent. That is, all kinds of swindlers have moved in and crushed the Greek organization. Greek organizations, of course, had made mistakes of their own, but the problem is that they have right now, no coherent option for trying to put their own affairs in order. And this is a mess. It's a mess which is created by the European system, essentially, the present European system, and they are the chief responsibles for this. There are other factors involved, admittedly, but the chief thing is the Greek institutions have been shattered, by the Euro system.
Okay, Lynn, I actually could do something I rarely do, but I wanted to ask you in reference to that the Greek situation. We had gotten reports a few weeks ago that Putin had not acted in support of Greece because the view that might have led to a thermonuclear confrontation. What did you think about those reports?
I wouldn't. That's not really true. That's not at all true. That's an impression, but from a distance, it doesn't. The facts aren't there. The appearance of something often is not what it is. It's like a guy who's running around naked, and he's trying to choose his suit to wear. It just doesn't quite make sense. I mean, the whole thing is a mess. It's a very deadly mess. And the chief picture of the mess is, of course, the British Empire, who set the whole thing in motion. That's where the real evil comes from. The problem in the United States, we've got Obama. Remember, you have two things. You have the Bush administration, which preceded the Obama administration. And if you take the two things, the Bush administration and the Obama administration, you have a real mess, a real evil mess. And I think the word evil is most appropriate for this purpose. So, and what we're threatened with is we're on the edge of thermonuclear war, global thermonuclear war. And the global thermonuclear war is under the auspices of the President of the United States, Obama. Obama is the threat, is the source of the threat for the extermination of the human species. That's what his potential is right now. So I think simple explanations do not fit this circumstance.
Okay, we're going to take another question up here. Here we go.
This is Rod from Brooklyn. Good evening, and I hope everything is well with you. The Manhattan Project, assuming it's successful, and assuming that we prevent nuclear war, etc., and even get rid of Obama. There's been something that else has been circling lately that has bothered me. At one time, the basement team talked about an oncoming ice age. Now, this last winter was a record winter in terms of snowfall and everything else in the Northeast region. And in addition to that, this coming winter, there's predictions that we may have a return of the same type of weather. We don't know exactly when this may happen, but have you given any thought as to what reaction and what this effect would be on the economy if we had the misfortune of an ice age come upon us?
I don't think we're anywhere near an ice age as such. There was as a long trend ice age, no. Weather is different. But actually, most of the opinion on this thing is really nonsense. I mean, people are given evidence and they see a fragmentary piece of evidence of a trend which they envisage, but they don't see the whole picture. And it's much more complicated than this. For example, the real basis for the organization of temperature fluctuations lies in the higher system, and it's way beyond anything that is normally understood. Most of the talk about ice ages and so forth is when the people try to push on it now is really nonsense. Forget it. There are fluctuations. These are measurable, but most of the systems that are presented are really not reliable. You get a lot of opinion about weather, a lot of opinion about this. There are fluctuations, yes, but they're not. These conclusions are not competently well grounded. There are a lot of things we don't know, but the fact that we don't know them means that we don't know them, and therefore we cannot draw conclusions of things which we do not understand. We have some partial understandings of some conditions, but we don't have really the kind of weather forecasting that popular opinion tries to present. We just have to work our way through this thing, and we have to especially find out what we can do to influence weather and other conditions, and those things are practical considerations which should be taken up.
Okay, I'm going to take another person up here. Go.
Hi, Mr. LaRouche. Hi, this is Eugene Bronstein in the Bronx, New York City.
Yes, I know you.
I would like to ask you, as you say, man is not an animal. He's creative, and he's looking for universal laws, laws of the universe. But do we really have a monopoly of this on Earth? After all, there are about 200 billion stars in our galaxy alone. That's the Milky Way galaxy, and our sun is just one of those stars. Some being on another planet in another solar system in our own galaxy could look up at night and see our sun as a star in his or her nighttime sky. So shouldn't mankind kind of life, the most intelligent life on all other planets in our galaxy, for example, that are living there, aren't they also not animals like on Earth? Are they not also creative and looking for universal laws?
But that's not really the way to look at it. You have to look at it one thing we know. We understand that the human personality, a characteristic human personality, is a species, a unique species, that no form of what we call animal life is human. But human life is a very specific thing and a specific quality. That the ability of mankind to understand the galaxy and what it represents is something which is not complete by any means. But we have some indications now, and we can get more of them, which will indicate what the trends may be. But the essential thing is that mankind is a unique species. We have no knowledge of anything which corresponds to mankind, except mankind itself. Animal life and human life are different. We sometimes try to explain them both in mutual terms, but those don't count for. Mankind is the only creature that can create the future. No animals can create the future as such, not willfully. Mankind can create the future. Mankind must create the future, which is human progress, human development, the rise of the human species to a higher level. No animal species can do that. So it's what we can do, and what we can, by putting our minds to it, so to speak, we can actually shape the future of mankind willfully. And we don't always do it. Matter of fact, we rarely do it, actually. But we can do it. And the greatest human minds that we know of have done precisely that. They have created action by the human mind, which changes the course of the destiny of mankind himself. And that's the wonderful story. And that's about that's the basic facts that we have to start with.
Okay. All right. Take another person up. Here we go.
Good afternoon, John, and good afternoon, Lynn, or good evening. This is going to be more in the form of a report.
Bruce, hold on a second. Lynn, can you hear him, Lynn?
The sound is low. I have difficulty hearing it.
Okay, Bruce, can you speak up a bit?
Okay. It's more in the form of a report of the last couple days, or actually even a little before that. This is Bruce from New Jersey, and as a number of people in particularly the Manhattan Project area know, I had published down in Florida a letter to the editor basically saying that Hillary Clinton can do the nation and the world a big favor by coming clean on Benghazi and paving the way for eliminating Obama from the presidency such that we can effect the necessary change to head off the drive for thermonuclear war. Now, I had also sent in to the local papers here in New Jersey that same article or same letter, which had not been published in the local papers. But what I did was I took that copy of the letter to the editor published in Florida and I resubmitted it to the local newspapers saying, I wish you'd reconsider not publishing my letter and use what they did in Florida in the newspapers to give you a little impetus to publish it. I know that there's also an event which I went to yesterday up in Manhattan at Dante Park, and on the way up there I took a copy of that letter also and a copy of the petition that Helga had written and that we have been circulating, and took that to a congressional office on my way up to Manhattan, along with some other material requesting a meeting with the congressman. So this morning I get up, and one of the papers I had resubmitted my letter to the editor published the Clinton must come clean on Benghazi, and actually put it right alongside of a letter to the editor being published by one of the local congressmen whose office had refused to meet with me on a number of things. And in fact, when I did talk to him on the phone, had said, impeaching Obama is not going to happen. Obviously something's going on there that they would publish my letter to the editor right next to his letter to the editor. But then a couple of hours later, I got a call from another congressional office, the one that I dropped material off to yesterday, and they had requested a meeting for this coming week on whatever matters I wanted to bring to the congressman's attention. So I just wanted to bring that up. I know somebody's going to give a report later on the event yesterday in Dante Park in Manhattan. But I did want to make clear to people that perseverance can overcome.
Well, the point is, on this whole issue is there is a fraud. Hillary committed a fraud, but under pressure from Obama. And Obama lied. And the entirety from that point on, Hillary did back down, cheapened herself, and has not recovered her honor since that time. I mean, she tried to tell the truth about that Obama had lied in the matter of the matter then. But she backed down from it when he put pressure on her. But what he had said was a lie. So Obama is a consistent liar. That's his most common characteristic. But he's also he's a thug. He takes after his father, who's a thug. And that's putting this guy in the presidency, which was done by the British monarchy, and that system put Obama into place. Now, we had a Bush family there before then, and they weren't much good at all. But Obama is worse than all Bushes combined himself. And the issue here is Hillary has not come forth to reaffirm what she said and knew. And by her playing a game of not challenging Obama when she had the facts to challenge him, she corrupted herself. And she's going through spinning and spinning and spinning. She's destroying herself in every respect by submitting to a lie that she knows was a lie because she just identified it. And that's what the issue is. The point is, you have to get Obama out of the presidency now, or you're not going to have a United States of living people in it. And that's really the short thing, and that's the real story. It was a simple thing, became more complicated, explanations around it, but none of it's true. Obama lied, period. And he intimidated Hillary into lying too. And she's suffering the fact that she submitted to the lies imposed upon her by Obama. And Obama is the criminal. And we will not have a presidency much longer unless we get Obama thrown out of it.
Okay, now just tell people on the phone that tomorrow there will be a statement on LaRouche PAC, which was discussed between Tony Pappert, editor of EIR, with Lyndon LaRouche, which will be also the editorial of the next EIR, entitled "An Insane President Will Launch Nuclear War in August. What Democrats Must Do to Prevent It." So I would encourage people to take a look for that. So we'll take the next person up here. Here we go.
Lyndon, this is John from Fredericksburg, Virginia. How you doing tonight? Good. My question is John Kerry recently made a statement about the reserve currency of the United States. I don't know if you recall that or not, but do you actually agree with this statement? If we did not sign that Iran deal, that the United States would no longer be the reserve currency?
Well, that's a complicated way to put it. It's really rather simple. Look, what we have is Franklin Roosevelt provided a standard for our currency under his administration. Now, what happened then is that was canceled, and what came in was the speculative business of speculation, Wall Street speculation particularly. That destroyed us. Now, if we're going to get a U.S. currency which is functional, we simply have to shut down Wall Street, because Wall Street's mechanism is the thing that has destroyed the integrity of the U.S. economy and put it into an actual chaotic situation and has ruined the people of the United States. So therefore you have to go back to a Glass-Steagall policy, which Hillary will not accept. So she's a menace too. We've got to get back to a Glass-Steagall standard. Now, what would that mean? This requires a little explanation. What does that mean? That means that the Wall Street money is worthless. It's absolutely worthless. It's phony money. And what would happen is, if we did the thing properly, we would essentially cancel Wall Street. We'd cancel all those games, because that's what caused the problem. From a process from Franklin Roosevelt, who had actually solved the problem, then you had various steps to undermine what Franklin Roosevelt had accomplished, which was the Glass-Steagall principle as such. We go back to Glass-Steagall, that means we wipe off all of those kinds of debts, Wall Street debts. Just cancel them. They're worthless. They are presently worthless. They're worth nothing or less than nothing. And Wall Street is totally bankrupt. The British system has a similar kind of problem, a total bankruptcy of the whole system under its present form. A reform, in the case of the United States, or in the current case of the British system right now, if you go back to a Glass-Steagall type of approach, a Franklin Roosevelt type, you would immediately cancel most of the debt which is claimed to be the property of the British system and of the current U.S. system. Now, you just wipe out that, because Wall Street is hopelessly bankrupt. It's worth less than nothing. That's the problem. We have to go back to a Glass-Steagall standard. The minute we do that, we can now start the march toward an economic recovery of the United States system. That's the simple story.
Okay, and I have a question, Lynn, from the internet, from YouTube, which is related to this, which is is the following. It says, China recently devalued their yuan. Can you give an opinion on how this will impact other emerging markets such as India, and what it will mean for the economies of the United States and Europe?
Well, I think the problem of China is limited to a certain aspect of the China economy, which was not adequately reformed. The other parts of the program are essentially sound, but the unsoundness comes from the international markets, in which the United States, among others, is one of the chief offenders. So that what happened under the Obama administration, the United States government has tried to wreck the economy, disrupt the economy of China. That was not something that had to happen. It was not something that was caused by China. It was caused by the Obama administration of the United States. And if you look at it in that way, you can see exactly how Wall Street, the characteristics of Wall Street and its speculative operations, and what is happening under Obama in respect to trying to mutilate the China economy, it's easily understood.
Okay, and for those of you who are on the phone, if you want to get into the queue to ask Mr. LaRouche a question, you hit *6 on your phone, or if you're on the internet, you can put a question on YouTube in the comments section, and we are getting some questions in from there, and we are monitoring those. Someone from LaRouche PAC is monitoring those questions and passing them along to me. So we're going to take another question up here.
Okay, good.
Hi, this is Andy Olson in Minnesota. I'm curious about the Iran issue, and it seems to me like Obama is contradicting his past behavior on most all international agreements, relations. It seems like he's always on the side of chaos and destruction. Well, what exactly is happening with this Iran negotiation? And I know the Congress has to okay it, and it seems like Obama he's on the right side. For what reason, I don't know.
Obama's on the wrong side always. It's the only side he has. The man should never have been a president. There's great doubt to be placed upon how the British system created the Obama administration. That was a British operation. And what he's done on the record, what Obama has done in his candidacy and in the results of his candidacy is largely fraud. Wild-eyed fraud. And what it's done to the conditions of the American people is monstrous. Therefore, this guy should be removed from office, and we should investigate whether he's committed crimes or not, which would penalties under law for the crimes he's committed, and they are massive and extensive. The lies are abundant. The whole thing is a fraud. We have to get rid of the Obama administration. We have to return to a Glass-Steagall policy, which is we call the Glass-Steagall policy, which was the name given to it by Franklin Roosevelt. Go back in that direction. Now, what would mean that would mean we would strip out a lot of claims against American citizens and the U.S. economy, and we would immediately create a credit system which would encourage actually investment in productive endeavors. It would mean an improvement in terms of the economy on the economic side, on the educational side. It would mean that we would go to a much more higher rate of productivity per capita. It would mean a recovery from most of the things that we've suffered from in recent centuries. In recent times here. So what we have to do would not be difficult to define a program which would represent a true pathway to recovery of the United States system. That could be done. It has not been done recently, but it can be done. Just simply take Franklin Roosevelt's policies. Now, these occurred under varying conditions, but what Franklin Roosevelt did, given the conditions under which he was operating, was good. It was excellent. It was a recovery. It was called a recovery then, the Franklin Roosevelt recovery. And since that time, there's been a continual drift away, further and further away from that policy. As a result, terrible things have happened to the welfare of most people, of our people. And we need to get back to that. We can solve the problem. All we have to do is get rid of some of these laws that were stuck in there, contrary to Franklin Roosevelt's plan. Franklin Roosevelt saved the United States during his service. After that, there was disruption, erosion, corrosion, with some successes and some failures, more failures than successes. We could, if we understood the history of our nation, the United States, we could easily pick out, at least from experts as such, pick out the exact measures needed to start a general recovery program for the United States. And it would not be just a recovery program in the economic sense, but a sense of development of the powers of mind, of the human personality. We have been destroyed into a large degree by the things that have been imposed upon the American people. And we simply have to do those things that Franklin Roosevelt had pioneered in doing, and do it all over again. And that will be a tough road to go, but it will be a road of success.
Okay, all right. So we have someone else up here, Lynn. Here we go.
Hello.
Hello.
You can hear me okay?
No, I can't.
You're going to have to speak up.
Oh, okay. Sure. 1 second. Okay, can you hear me better?
Better, yes.
Okay, great. This is Jessica.
Okay.
I think she got disconnected, Lynn. I think she'll call back in a second. I think her call dropped. She was on a cell phone. Well, let's see. I don't know what happened. Jessica, if you hear me, you've been disconnected. You should call back in because you dropped the line. So, Lynn, in the meantime, I have another question here, which is somewhat in line with what you were just discussing, but so I think it's in the same topic. This is from Greg from Minneapolis, wrote in a question from YouTube. He said the following: I have a question from a comment, I guess, of you going back 3 years ago. I guess referring to then that if Glass-Steagall were to be passed, this would be perceived as a declaration of war. Now, in thinking about this idea, it seems to me that a war declaration against the Anglo-Dutch is long overdue. I see Glass-Steagall as coming again in our future. However, I would like to press the idea that a formal declaration of war would be warranted after 230 years of assaults on our nation. How should a declaration of war be constructed? What are the key items? How can a formal declaration of war be put into force? That was the question.
Well, actually, we don't have to call it a war. What you have to do is recognize that in the misfortunes of the United States system, there have been many presidencies within that system, and probably a majority of some of the presidencies of that system have been on the wrong track. This happened after George Washington's administration. You had a series of terrible administrations that ruined our economy in some degree or other, damaged it. You had a few people who have been presidents who were great, who did great things, but they were exceptions, unfortunately. But the few exceptions were brilliant. But then in the course of the 20th century, we had a real problem. Well, what would happen, you get assassinations of presidents or similar kinds of things. And guess what you would have? You would have the Confederacy, which was terrible. It was ruinous. It was just evil in a sense. So we've had very few presidencies. Among the total number of presidencies we've had, most of the presidencies of the United States have been a disaster for the United States. There have been presidents who were not disasters, who were great presidents, but they were the exceptions. And most of the time, the influence of the British influence, expressed in various ways, have been able to fool people into sucking into something which did them no good, just misguided. So we've had very few presidents who were fit to be presidents. Those who have been fit to be presidents have done a pretty good job, but we don't have enough of presidents who are doing good jobs, and that's been our problem. And people just don't understand it. And I guess the educational system, the cultural system, and so forth, many things part of the system, the American citizen is often completely misled. They think they know what they're doing, but they don't, because they're given some recipe, some explanation, something they swallow, false investments and things like that. And we could have a more competent system. I would hope that once we get out of this terrible situation we have now under Obama and get back to being a real president system, we could recover. And maybe we could fix it so we don't go back again to repeat the old same nonsense we went through so many times before. But, I mean, for me, for my knowledge, so forth, the principle of a successful reorganization of the U.S. economy is a very elementary thing. It can work. It will work. We just have to find the people who don't screw it up, which is, they've done much pretty successfully most of the time. Wall Street is a good example of that. Wall Street is a typical example of pure evil. Because they're bankrupt now. Wall Street is totally bankrupt. And yet the Wall Street system is the interest. The Wall Street interest is the interest which the government of the United States tends to support. And that's what's been going on. Most of our presidencies recently have been corrupt. They don't have to be corrupted. They are corruption embodied as corruption intrinsically. Once we understand what this American system was, what the system was, is founded by our system. Once we get back to that, and if we can stay to it, we can do just well, do fine. But the problem is that we have poor people who misled, misguided, don't understand what the interest of the economy is, what the interest of the American people are. They just don't know it. Probably because they weren't told what the truth was.
Well, and I think when we dump... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say, when we dump Wall Street, I think we might dump Trump at the same time. It's possible.
Well, Trump... Don't people know what Trump is? Don't they know what he represents? All the way back to the end of the Franklin Roosevelt period? Trump is simply a part of a mechanism, I would say crime, that the intention is to produce an effect which would be tantamount to a crime. And Trump is simply one of a group of people who came roaring out once Franklin Roosevelt died, and they began to wreck the U.S. economy in one way or the other all the way through since that time. Trump, anyone who votes for Trump is a dump.
Okay. I'm looking for Jessica if she's on. Jessica, we lost your connection before, so we're waiting to hear from you. So if you're on the phone, Jessica, please call back in or get back in the queue, because we were ready to get your state. Oh, here we go. That worked. My plea worked. Here we go. Okay.
Hi, sorry about that. I don't know, the phone call dropped or something. But what I was saying, I was giving a report on the rally that took place yesterday in Dante Park at Lincoln Center in New York City. And I was saying that there were at any one time about 20 to 25 members and organizers out in the street. And very nice area. We had lots of people going by, gave out hundreds of flyers. People came over to the tables. They gave information, so we got lots of contacts, people that we were going to call back, that we're going to invite to things that they need to get more education on, like the Saturday meetings. And, as Bruce was saying, it was really a very successful rally. I also want to talk about a disruptor that came into the rally area. And, of course, he was immediately handled by our organizers. The interesting thing was he came off first like he was just kind of a nut person, kind of a crazy person. And, he might have been homeless or on drugs or something like that. But as he went away and then he came back, I was thinking, and this seems to be confirmed by several other people, that this may be part of some type of operation being run against us. And I wanted to say to everyone what I think about this is that the closer we get to success in getting rid of President Obama and getting Hillary to tell the truth so that we can get rid of President Obama and stop the threat of thermonuclear war. The closer we get to actually succeeding, the more we may see these kinds of things going on, these disruptors coming out of the woodwork. And we have to be not afraid of it or leery of it, but aware of it and able to understand that we are succeeding, and that's why these things are happening. And we have to stay on top of what we know and getting the truth out. And the organizers will be aware of how to get rid of these people. But as a member, I'm really thinking about it and saying this must be happening, this operation against us, because we are succeeding. And we have to keep that in mind. We have to keep doing what we're doing in order to see the success and keep them running, keep them, afraid of us. We cannot be afraid of these kinds of things that are going on. We have to keep up the pressure and keep doing what we're doing. And, I just wondered if you could comment on that.
The disease of the American people is called populism. That is, people say popular opinion, popular opinion, popular opinion. Well, popular opinion on the record has been a fraud. That's the problem. And people have bought into things which should not have been bought into. And so therefore they become, for example, bad education. Bad education destroys minds of people. The kind of cultural developments which have been recent trends have destroyed the morality of our citizens. They don't know what morality is anymore. They're sex freaks of one kind or another. And this doesn't do any good. So the point is, mankind must have some standard of intelligence to recognize what the values are that lead to the purpose of mankind's existence. And that's been changed. It's been confused. The education system has been corrupted very seriously. All kinds of diversions, populist diversions and so forth have come in. And morality is shattered. Meaningful reality has been shattered. It's difficult to maintain that. But I think if we have a movement, when we see traces of that coming up, which does try to understand what the principles of mankind requires for society to be successful, I think we can do it. The problem is we have to fight against those who are moving in a different direction, who are maintaining like Wall Street, for example. Look, Wall Street is totally bankrupt. It's absolutely bankrupt, hopeless. As a matter of fact, there's a point where if it would just explode by itself, it's on the edge of that kind of thing. So why are we still tolerating Wall Street? We should just simply cancel Wall Street because it's a fraud. It's a fraudulent venture. Why are we to be enslaved by something which is totally a fraud, worthless? All of Wall Street is a fraud. In general, that is the whole mass of Wall Street. There may be exceptions here and there, but the overall thing is a fraud. And this fraud is destroying us. Yet we tolerate it. We respect it. So the problem is we are confused. The American people are confused. The values are wrong. They're terrible. And the things that would lead to progress are prevented. What I'm doing, and other people that like me and with me, understand these things. But you have resistance from what's called popular opinion. Popular opinion is the destruction of mankind. What we call popular opinion is destruction. And that's where the problem lies. We're fighting against it, and we have some successes. In Manhattan, for example, we get successes in Manhattan, and they're functional. It may not be the total population of Manhattan, but it's functional. And we know that we can get that. We know we can get that back into place. It's going to take continued effort to do so. But what's been happening to the United States is there has been so much of the history of the United States has been going in the wrong direction. It's destroying everything that we really thought we wanted. And therefore you have to have a proper sense of what the principles are of our system. And that those principles are generally lost. It's productivity, the increase of the productive powers of man to make things better in a true sense for mankind. And the point is, there's a deeper principle, is that the human species is the only species which is human. That mankind's ability to make discoveries of principle which mankind had not known before, but mankind discovering those principles and knowing them has always been the road for the creation of advancements in the condition of the human mind and the human welfare. What we have, we've lost that. Why? Because contrary values have come in, opportunist values, so-called. And what we're doing is we are, as in New York City and other places where we're working, we are bringing people back to assemble themselves for these values, which always did work when done, and we're going back at it again. And that's the best shot we have.
Well, Lynn, I have another question from the internet, from YouTube, from Thomas, who I believe may be from Texas, and he asks, he says that you have previously pointed out that we have to define the next step in the kind of human, as he puts it, human self-evolution. He asks you, Lynn, how would you define a mission for humanity from a galactic perspective?
Well, the galactic perspective is a very good place to start from, because the galaxy is, let me just, Bobby, I should explain something, so not to confuse anybody. We've had different ideas about how mankind could progress. We had, at a certain point, under Kepler defined the idea of of that system itself, and that worked, but it was not adequate. But the fact that what his discovery was absolutely essential for the progress of mankind. But it wasn't the complete progress of mankind. So therefore, we now realize there was a higher level of standard for measure of the progress of mankind. We now recognize that as being the galactic principle. That is, the galaxy as a superior force in the universe with respect to mankind and other kinds of things is the standard which we now use as a measure of the methods we must apply to the continuation of the existence of mankind in the solar system and so forth. And what's involved here is that mankind is the only creature that can make true scientific discoveries. that is, discoveries of scientific principles. And these generally are in accord with the legacy of the galaxy, also Kepler's own work. And this progress of each generation to rise a little bit higher in terms of understanding of and mastery of the universe that we're living in is the name of progress. And that's called scientific progress, true scientific progress. And true scientific progress, physical scientific progress, is actually the difference of mankind from mere animals. Animals have certain abilities, but they're fixed by species. Mankind, unlike the animals, mankind has the ability to rise to a higher level successively, to make discoveries which mankind has never been able to understand before, and to use those discoveries to bring mankind into a state of power within the solar system, within the universe, to make discoveries by which mankind will advance greatly into higher levels of operation. Like the discovery, for example, of Kepler, the discovery of the solar system by Kepler. That was a great step. You have the discovery of the galactic system now, another great step. And by understanding these great steps in knowledge, in the practice of knowledge, mankind is able to have seemingly limitless opportunities for its future. And that's really, I think, the most inspiring thing that we can think of.
Well, I think inspired by that idea, Lynn, I have a question from Meredith, who says, I'd like you to say something about the connection between the national policies you're advocating and the nation's educational policies. What should we be teaching our youth and how? She says, I've been using your 1986 essay, Saving Our Children, Reintroducing Classical Education to the Secondary Classroom, as a grounding for my coursework towards an education degree. So she wants to know if you could say something about how these things would apply in terms of bringing them into the education system.
Well, the first thing is you have to go to look for a fundamental principle here. That is that mankind's progress is expressed in mankind's discovery of a principle of action. That is a practical principle of action, which will enable mankind as a species to make a step up to a higher level of achievement within the solar system or whatever. That's the issue. And the education system is to promote the education of students, young people, students, etc., and to bring each of them into a higher understanding of something that mankind had never known before. In this experience of discovering a truth which was never known before is the distinction of the human species from everything else. And the educational process, of what we should consider the educational process, corresponds to that. Einstein, for example, in the 20th century, Einstein was the paragon of a mind which understood the future, had a conception, where all the other scientists of that period, of that century, were a little bit not too smart. Einstein was uniquely superior. Why? Because he was looking into the actual creation of the future. And that's the distinction of mankind, of human beings, from animals, is that mankind progresses through the human mind into higher levels of existence than had been known before. That is, to know principles, to discover principles of action which mankind had never known before. And the purpose of mankind is to discover the experience of those things, those effects. And that is what human progress is. And that's the distinction of the human being from a mere animal.
Okay, great. I'm going to take another question up here. Here we go.
Yes, hi. Can I be heard?
Yes, I think so.
Great. Hi, Lynn, John. This is Alvin here in New York. There were two things I wanted to bring to you. One, you referenced it in your opening remarks, and John also. I was a part of both the webcast on Saturday and the music that took place, the music program that took place afterwards. And just a couple of things. The seamlessness of it, and ending as the program did at night, beginning with the musical practice and everyone participating at the webcast, going through the webcast, and then into the night program, as you stated, Lynn, really indicated the level that the Manhattan Project is shifting into. And being a part of it, that was both seen and felt throughout. Then John Segerson's historical placement of the geniuses, particularly of the music he was about to sing, but of all the music that was performed, and giving us the situation in Europe at that time while these works were being developed and performed. As he put it, these were not practical people. So this was very important, since we had so many, such a mix of, say, older, intermediate, and new people there. But if they were part of this process, something happened and it stayed with them. And indeed, coming out of the chorus today, we saw an increase of participation and new members. So I just wanted to reference that. But I also was at the rally yesterday and was not present at the harassment, during the harassment period. I was only there for about an hour. And I would say that it was fortunate, because my understanding, I haven't done a lot of street deployments compared to many others. But I have been present at deployments where harassments took place, the tossing of tables, of literature, and so on. Now, this little setup yesterday was with a mega, they were mic'd, so Bill Roberts and others were speaking. They could be heard very well. Jessica mentioned it was a good turnout from an LPAC standpoint. So we were really loud, in essence, beautifully but loud, and we could be heard and felt. And there was singing as well, on a smaller scale, but nevertheless singing. Some of it ridiculing, humorous stuff, and then some classical pieces as well. So this takes a whole dynamic. Then you get a person who may be an agent or an operative or just a lunatic. And it's one thing for me personally, because this really does unnerve people. I don't think Jessica quite went into that. And it's to destabilize. Now, when you have a lot of people, you have power in numbers, and that really helps. But my understanding is that one of these guys, there were two, got physical, put his hands on one of the organizers. Again, I don't know who or what, but I say it was fortunate that I was there, because I will not allow that. And if anybody puts a hand on me, or particularly any of the women there, as far as I'm concerned, they're going down. and we'll deal with the tension of that moment and any problems that people have. But I want to share that I just feel very strongly about this, and Jessica, I think, was right. We're heating things up, and more of these things are going to happen. And I think, personally, I draw the line on once anything becomes physical. By the time I got there, and it was only midday, everything was fine, and people were functioning and talking and singing, and we were engaging. But when these things happen, I'd like to hear what you have to say, because it is really unnerving, and I guess that's why we're singing and going to a higher level, so we don't react in a street-like, thug-like manner. But once a person lays a hand on anyone, I think all bets are off.
I hope not. I hope we can control the situation, but we have to have an insight into the fact that, when this stuff is done, when this kind of disruption is done, this is not, nobody's fooled, I think, about who's doing what to whom. This is a deliberate thing to disrupt this operation. We're having an assembly, we're discussing things, and somebody comes in and just starts roughing things up. Well, we know what that is, that people are being deployed to rough people up. It's that simple. So this is really a police matter. Once this is started, that has to be prevented. And we have to probably get some evidence, get some identities of the people who are doing it, track their identity, and expose them. And that's the best way to do it. Say this guy did it. Well, who is he? Get his identity. What kind of a criminal are you? It's the best question. We don't do that kind of stuff here. What are you? But what happens is it happens when the crowd itself says, no, you're not going to do this here. You're not going to do this here. We're not going to let you do that here. We don't do that here. You behave yourself. And it takes a little bit of opportunity and insight to understand how to deal with that. But these guys often come in and they're actually operatives of one kind or another. They're in there to disrupt. They're there to disrupt. They're not there to do any legitimate operation. They're there to disrupt. And you've got to get some intelligence on that, who these guys are, what they're doing, so forth. And when you can identify them in that way, then you can bring that under control. But you've got to get their identities and publicize their identities. Like enforcing the law.
Okay. All right. Well, I have a question here, Lynn, from Eli, who I believe is from California, but he is in the question. This is from YouTube. Described as a former advisor to Ronald Reagan's presidential campaign in 1980, and he's a political activist, and he asked the following: I have just signed the call your organization is circulating to stop the immediate danger of World War III. But then he says, but I fear because Obama uses the tactic of leading from behind, I am afraid that many people have a difficulty seeing Obama's central role in this impending catastrophic doom we face. How can we break up this brainwashing that the American people is being subjected to? Thanks for all you do. That's the question.
Okay. Well, obviously, that's exactly what you have to do. You have to say, this is this, and this is what the Obama people do. Now, if you can correctly identify it as the Obama people, and say so. Well, these are the Obama people. They do that, and that's a very good deterrent against the spread of that kind of practice. It's not an absolute security, but it does encourage. What the thing you want to do this is you don't want to let the people you're working with experience defeat. If they're right, they're right. They should have a sense of having been right or being right, and of saying, we don't allow that here. That's not done here. That's hoodlumism. We don't allow hoodlumism here in our meetings. Period. And that is a good deterrent, because you can, if you popularly say hoodlum, that has a certain effect. Oh, who's that hoodlum? Oh, that's Obama. Oh, he's a lone hoodlum.
Okay. All right. Okay, we'll take another question. Here we go.
Hello. This is Steve from Niagara Falls. Martin O'Malley cut through public opinion last Sunday on the Face the Nation program. He said, I would ask Hillary Clinton what sort of ideas she has to make our economy work again. Does she have the kind of independence to rein in the recklessness on Wall Street that tanked our economy? I am in favor of reinstituting Glass-Steagall. I will put in robust prosecutional efforts back on Wall Street. As a candidate for president, each of us needs to state unequivocally whether we are for reinstituting Glass-Steagall, whether or not we're for or against the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Pact. Where does she stand? These are things you have to have answered only in the debate. That was
true.
On Face the Nation.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And it's quite efficient, I think. I think you must recognize that. Huh?
Okay. I have a question, Lynn, from Kathy from Milwaukee. She says, my question is simple. It's 1 minute to midnight on both the danger of thermonuclear war and thermonuclear economic blowout. If the blowout of the transatlantic system comes first, that is the economic blowout, are the BRICS nations of Russia, China, etc., strong enough to withstand that, or will they be blown apart and go down with the collapse which will swallow up the whole world? Thanks very much. I've been supporting you for president for a long time. So that's your question.
I think that our ability to sustain the fight against hoodlumism of various kinds is, no matter whether you win the particular conflict or not, the fact that you maintain a defense against this kind of hoodlumism is itself the best treatment, the best source of treatment that you can supply. You don't always have to be successful, but if you're putting the pressure on in the right way, you probably will be successful in the balance of matters. And that's what we have to do. It's what we do, isn't it? We often lose a particular battle, but by being persistent in terms of principle, we actually can, in the net effect, ultimately win.
Okay, we're going to take another question up here. Here we go. Okay.
Hello. Yeah, hello.
Yes.
This is Ken from New York.
I think you got to really speak. I think you got to speak up, Ken.
Yeah, is that better?
Not quite.
I'll try. I don't know what I can do. If it's not loud enough now, then I can't do it.
Well, go ahead, Ken. If you have a short question, I can repeat it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a short question. I have been thinking and watching some of it. Like last week, particularly, Ms. White commenting on her report, talking to her congressman. And I've seen it through the years where the congressmen respond in a way that you know they are not serious at all. And their attitude is, well, we're not breaking any law. We don't have to be different than what we're doing. You had your say, I'll get out of the way, and we'll promise you anything. But they really, are not serious about matters. So what I think is that they may not be breaking positive law, but the preamble to our Constitution.
Well, Ken, listen.
Yeah.
Ken, you have to look. The connection is bad, so you're going to either have to ask a quick question or try to call back on another line. Okay? Do you have a quick question for Mr. LaRouche? I can repeat it to him.
It's positive. It's natural law. That it's natural law that our congressmen are violating. That's my question.
Okay, I got it. Okay. So then he was asking about whether what we're fighting is. He's really asking the difference between positive law and natural law, and what is the basis upon which we're fighting?
Well, the point of law is the principle of progress. In other words, the intention of mankind is in life, and mankind as a process also, not just as an individual, but as a process. The problem is that mankind must rise to higher levels of achievement in terms of effect, progress, economic progress, cultural progress, all these kinds of things which are well known to us as phenomena. That's what the intention is, because the point is that mankind is a unique species when properly understood. Mankind is always going higher to a higher level of achievement in science, in technology, in every other way. And that's the standard. And that's what the difference is of mankind from animals. Animals are not capable of rising to higher levels of development of practice. Only human beings can do that. The object in life, therefore, for mankind is to progress, to rise to higher standards of achievement. For example, scientific principles, for example. The practice of scientific principles is one of the most characteristic features of progress. And the way in which, through educational process, through higher experimentation, and so forth, these are the means by which mankind becomes mankind, as opposed to merely animals. Mankind is not an animal. Mankind is defined as a creature which rises always to a higher level of existence, whereas no animal can do that. And that's what the standard is.
Okay. Well, I think then that's a good point where we can conclude here this evening. I just want to mention one thing to the people on the phone, which is that we have a video available, which I'll send out in my email tomorrow following up from our call this evening. The video of the musical performance that Alvin mentioned before, the music evening, the music Abend, that was so beautiful and held last Saturday night in Manhattan. So I would encourage people, if you haven't watched that, to make sure you look at that, because we want to radiate this process from New York throughout the country. So, Lynn, is there anything you would like to say here this evening to those on the phone still in terms of concluding remarks?
Yeah, well, the point is we are in New York right now. We had an achievement of course, you must call it an achievement, in bringing together a choral phenomenon, which was quite successful. The fact that success is not merely something where you get pats on the back or something, but is an effect in which the people participating feel themselves as being uplifted by the process which they have shared in going through. And that thing that happened in that New York meeting, which was excellent, and the spirit was excellent. The improvement and satisfaction among the participants was excellent. And we must expect to go to still higher levels in the coming weeks.
Okay, wonderful. And again, I'll just tell that it's apparently already up on the website, a statement which I'm sure will be out in a leaflet form as well, entitled "An Insane President Will Launch Nuclear War in August. What Democrats Must Do to Prevent It." So I encourage everybody, as soon as you get off the call, take a look at that statement that was drafted earlier in a discussion between Tony Pappert and Lyndon LaRouche. And Lynn, thank you very much. This has been our 14th discussion here. It's really been quite an interesting process over the last few months, and we look forward, Lynn, with being back with you next Thursday. And so that concludes our 14th Fireside Chat with Lyndon LaRouche. Good night, Lynn.
Good night.
Okay.
Good.
Your conference recording has stopped. Goodbye.